Alright, all the lone wolves out there who like to play solo most of the time. Are you tired of dying every time left, right, and center? You know? Are you tired that the enemies are bullying you all the time as well, just like you get bullied in real life? Don't worry about it, you know? Use this build because you might just live long enough to tell everybody your life's achievements. So, now, we're using a build that will keep you alive. Obviously, that's the goal, but we're also going to be doing a lot of damage. Like, I'm talking about 1,000,000 crits on the body, man. Like, that's really a lot of damage. Now, if you want to achieve that, watch the video because maybe you just, learn a thing or two. So, go watch that. Now, don't type any nasty comment yet. Like, wait, no, you stop. Let's go. Watch the video, okay? All right, so this is the first variant that I actually like to use it a lot. Now, I would recommend you guys to use this variant as well. Now, when I say variant, I actually only meant for the weapons. The weapons are the one we're going to be switching a lot or changing, depends on the playstyle. That's actually going to change the playstyle of the build, basically. Now, the gear will stay the same. You can just use the same gear and just have different weapons, obviously. Choose the weapon which you prefer. Now, if you have, all these pieces, you can use that. If you're missing a few pieces, I'll give you alternatives, so don't worry about it. Now, as for the, specialization, you can use whatever you want. I'm using Gunner, sometimes using Technician, sometimes using Firewall, so it's totally up to you. Now, let's talk about the weapons. So, the first weapon that I like to use most of the time is the Cold Relations SMG. It's a really, really solid SMG with the, the perfect strain talent. Most of the time, you will be just melting down your targets before you can hit this talent fully proc, like, that 80% crit damage. And also one of the reasons why I'm using it because it's available at the weekly vendor reset, like this vendor this week at the countdown vendor, you can purchase it. Also, Cassie Mendoza is selling as well. I actually decided to do something like this where I use the, the good weapons or the gears from the vendor and then, including in a build video that week. So if you're interested on that build, you can just get that weapon or the gear from that week. You can purchase from the vendor, okay? Now, for the other high end, you can just choose whatever. You can just use, another SMG as well. But I'm using Lefty, which I honestly don't really use it. Now, other SMGs that you can use over here, which will be pretty good. For example, like Dark Winter. Dark Winter will be a really good choice, the perfect killer talent. You can also use the Apartment with the perfectly measured talent. Now, this is also an SMG that is available at this vendor reset. You can buy it from the, Dark Zone vendor. So that's a really good SMG here. Or you can just use a Siga MPX with, like a strain talent or a close in person or any damage talent. You can use that. As for the exotic weapon, if you want to use any exotic, I would say Chameleon will be a great choice here because you can just use it as an SMG, just like up close. You could use like that. You get a lot of crit chance, like 20% crit chance and 50% crit damage with it, and 90% weapon damage, which is pretty much like a 6-core red attribute like amount of damage, which is pretty crazy. And also the reload speed 150%, which makes your weapon reload like instantly, basically. That's a really good choice there, and you can keep the damage buff active all the time, at least one of them. If you want to learn more about it, I actually made a video dedicated to the Chameleon and the St. Telemos previously, so you can watch that as well. Now, this is that. Now, you could also use the Backfire as an SMG here as well. Now, I know we don't have any hazard protection, so we're going to bleed, which is what we want. We want to bleed here. Why? Well, there's a nice synergy happening with the gear set as well as this SMG. Now, obviously, the gear set I'm using is the, Foundry Bulwark here. And Foundry Bulwark gives you that makeshift repair talent where whenever you're taking damage or your shield is taking damage, 20% of that amount is repaired over 15 seconds. So you also regenerate your health as well as your shield's health, which is pretty good. Now, Backfire will bleed us, right? Every time you reload, you bleed, and that will trigger the talent. And that's why it's a really good choice here. Now, you get 200% crit damage with this, which is pretty good. Now, the only downside, or actually two downside of the Backfire is that your screen's going to go red most of the time when you bleed. And you're going to be a little bit slower, like the animation. So, yeah, that's that. Otherwise, a really good choice here. Once you hit that 200 crit damage mark, you're no longer going to bleed. And you have crazy damage. And you have regen at the same time, which is a pretty good choice. You could definitely use that. Now, if you're using exotic, well, then you won't be able to use the pistol that I'm using, which is making our build hit crazy amount of damage, which is the Busy Little Bee. Busy Little Bee is a great pistol here, which we're taking advantage of, especially with the high-end primary weapon. Now, Busy Little Bee, if you don't know, the talent actually gives you a lot of weapon damage stack from it. So each stack means 20% weapon damage. So every time you hit a target, you mark them, and one target you mark, you get 20% weapon damage. So the more targets you mark, more damage you get, which is amazing. So how you actually play with this build? Well, first of all, you need to activate Memento, right? So you need to get kills to get Memento active, because once Memento is active, you're unkillable. Like, you have regen, you have damage, you have bonus armor, and every time you pick up the trophy, you have even more damage. Like, that's Memento for you. But you need to get to that Memento stacks first, right? How do you do that? You need the damage. With the busy little bee, you're going to be initiating combat. So you're going to hit a couple of targets, so you have like 40% weapon damage. If you hit 3 targets, that's 60% weapon damage. So you initiate the combat with the busy little bee, you mark it, swap your weapon, and then just melt the targets and pick up the Memento trophy, build up your Memento stacks. You have the regen going on, you have the damage going on, and you can just keep the loop active. Now, most of the time, you're probably not going to be able to use the busy little bee. If you get surrounded by a lot of enemies, then obviously you're not going to be swapping your weapon that much. But to initiate the combat, you can definitely do that. If you're going from one place to another, let's say you're playing a mission where there's a travel time, right? So you just keep the busy little bee buff with you. Don't swap your weapon, because the moment you swap your weapon, you're going to start the timer of 10 seconds. And then you will lose the buff after 10 seconds. So don't swap it. Just keep the pistol in your hand, go from one place to another, and then just swap it, get the buff, shred the targets, pretty much. That's how you play with it. And once you get the Memento trophy, the buffs and stuff with the Memento, you have the regen and the damage. You no longer actually require the busy little bee. But if you want to just melt some bosses really quickly, you can just, shoot a couple of enemies with the busy little bee, and then just swap to your SMG, and then you're just doing millions of crits on the body. You just need like 2 to 3 shots with this particular build to make that correlation hit a million crits on the body with the busy little bee. So yeah, give it a try. If you want more armor, you can just go with it. I just chose 1.3 million armor. I feel it's okay. If you want 1.5, just go for 1.5. It's okay. No shame in that, because the more armor you have, the more regen you'll get, and we do have a lot of damage with it, especially with the busy little bee. We have a lot of damage. Now, as for the gear, like stats, we actually have obviously weapon damage and crit damage for the mask. I actually changed that blue code to weapon damage there, and I did the same thing with the gloves as well. So weapon damage, crit damage. My crit damage and some armors are not even maxed out. I just went to countdown and farm these pieces and just slap it on. I didn't even bother to max it out, because that's how it's going to look like for an average player. No min-maxing here, no expertise. So imagine if you have like more armor, with the expertise, and also more damage on the weapon from expertise. That's going to be even crazier, right? Now, for the chest piece, high-end, I went with the Grupo. You can also use a Bellstone to add extra bit of armor regen there. So I would say that's overkill. You don't need that much. I just chose the Grupo because this is actually a really good piece I have. So that's why I'm using it with the obliterate talent on it. You could also use Intimidate because we have bonus armor with us. So you could do that. But I would say obliterate is just fine. If you're using SMG that can use the laser pointer from the technician specialization, you can also use a spotter talent on the chest piece. So yeah, that's also a choice there. So yeah, give it a go, try it and see for yourself. Try it with the busy little bee with the high end, and if you're using exotic, like I said, you can use the Chameleon or the Backfire. Backfire is actually a really fun play style with this, especially with that bleed that's kicking up the regen. You're pretty much unkillable with this build. You'll know, like once you proc the Memento, you have like 60k armor regen just by the Memento, and then the makeshift repair giving you regen as well at the same time. So you're like over 90k to 100k armor regen there, and you have so much damage with the build. You're not gonna die. It's a really solid build. Give it a try for yourself and see how it performs, and let me know in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next one. Till then, peace.